Hey friends, you know, last time we were together, we showed a thing called a Geneva Bible that was published over 400 years ago, and we got a great response from you. A lot of you were very interested in those kind of old collections and kind of not ancient, but older Bibles, and so there was a lot of interest there. And you know, in the conversations, one of the things that came up was, okay, so you have this Bible that's over 400 years old. However, we're over 2,000 years removed from the writing of the New Testament. So between the 1st century and the 16th century, what exactly did the Bible look like? What did that mean to have a Bible? How did people have access to it? And what did it mean to talk about the Bible during that time? So I want to show you something today. And in our collection, we have a pretty good variety of things called codices. And a codex is a book that would have been the text of the Bible, and today we're going to look at a few of them and talk to someone who knows way more about them than I do, and that's Dr. Alan Black. He's our dean. Welcome, Dr. Black.
Good to be here.
And he is going to share some of his thoughts on what we're looking at today. So what do we have here?
Okay, we have two sort of reproductions of the most important of our ancient manuscripts in the New Testament. This one is Vaticanus, Codex, as you explain what codexes are. Codex Vaticanus, which is named for being in the Vatican. This one is Codex Sinaiticus, which is named for the fact that it was found in a monastery on Mount Sinai. Okay,
so now these look different. So it looks like this is more of a printed thing, and how are these different?
Okay, this is a semi-reproduction. It's very close to what the actual would have looked like in a printed version that was done in the 1800s. This version of Sinaiticus was done very recently, and this is photographs of each page.
So we found these texts, and then we stored them, and then we took pictures of them.
That's correct.
Now, I'm confused because I thought the Bible was written on scrolls.
Well, most of the Bible was written on scrolls, and it could be that the earliest manuscripts of the New Testament, when Paul wrote, or when Mark wrote, or when John wrote, that they wrote on scrolls. It could even be possible that, say, Mark or John especially, might have written in codex form, because our earliest forms of all of the New Testament, even a fragment from the 2nd century or the stuff we have in the later 2nd and 3rd century, is all in codex form.
Interesting, really interesting. So as I'm looking at these here, you know, there's a few things that stand out to me. First of all, I'm like, okay, I want to go to my favorite texts. I don't see any chapters and verses.
Yeah, it's very tough to find here. Now, to help us who are modern people, the chapters and verses are listed at the bottom. But at the time that these were done, which would be in the 4th century, the 300s AD, there were no chapters and verses. There were a kind of chapter which you can see a little bit of here, or on this page over here. You can see in the red markings here. Those were chapter markings that were used in the 4th century, in the 300s. But as a matter of fact, we changed that completely, and the chapter system that we use was developed in the 1200s.
Well,
in the 13th century.
Yeah, so almost like 1,000 years later than these,
right.
Almost.
And our verses came along in the 1500s.
Wow. As I'm looking at these, I also, not a lot of spaces between the words. They look pretty condensed. I want to blame somebody. Who wrote these?
There is no punctuation, and there wouldn't have been likely in the originals. There would have been no punctuation. There is no division between words, and so you have to be able to read this. And the ancient Greeks could read it this way. They read other things this way, without punctuation, without sentences being identified, paragraphs being identified, or even words being identified. Everything is in capital letters. You'll notice very neat capital letters that all run together.
Yeah, it's like online someone's screaming at you.
Yes.
By using all caps. What I'd like to know more, why is this important kind of in your work as a scholar? How does looking at texts like this kind of inform the way we think about the Bible, the way we translate the Bible? What do you think?
These two manuscripts, which came to light to scholars in the 1800s, are the two oldest manuscripts from the 4th century, virtually the entire New Testament. Sinaiticus has all the New Testament. Vaticanus was torn off at the end and has the majority of the New Testament. Now we have earlier manuscripts that come from the 3rd century and a little bit even from the 2nd century, but they're all very partial.
Right.
And they're written on papyrus, these were done on animal skins.
Right.
That was done on something like paper.
Something like paper. That's great. Anything a person would want to know about these besides that? Anything that you find particularly interesting or want to share?
Well, I think, the fact that there are most important manuscripts is probably the most important thing.
Yeah.
This one, you might like to know, Sinaiticus is found in this photographic copy on the web.
Yeah.
So you can Google Codex Sinaiticus and you can go look it up.
Okay, yeah, and all of you should do that. We have a larger collection of these. There are other codices that you can come and check out. But this is just one way to understand kind of the bridge that's being built between the 1st century and when things were written, and then kind of the Bible as we have it today, where you can even carry it around on your own phone. All right, we'll see you next time.